Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for braving the elements. Of course, it could be snow, so it's a lot better, and it's kind of warm. Good morning and welcome to our Columbus Chamber of Commerce's Experience Series. I'm Don DePero, your President and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. Great to see everyone this morning. We'd really especially like to thank our hosts, GBQ, and their beautiful space, which has even a more beautiful view when the weather's a little nicer, but it's a fantastic view and fantastic space. GBQ sponsors the Experience Series, and their managing director, Darcy Congrove, is a treasured board member and just stepped away from being our board chair the past 2 years. So please join me in welcoming the managing director of GBQ, Darcy Congrove.
Don, and welcome to GBQ. We are, for those of you who don't know us, we are a public accounting firm. So we do audits and tax returns and all of that stuff that you perceive that accountants do, and lots of other things as well. You're not going to see very many people running around here today because everybody's kind of chained to their desk this time of year. March is the busiest time of our season, and lots of things are happening here. So we appreciate you being here and being part of this, especially we know it's spring break time. So I'm sorry you didn't get to go on spring break, but maybe you're going to get to go a different week. I have my own mature worker experience days ago here at GBQ. So because it's busy season, we feed people a lot because we're here all hours of the day and night. And so it's pizza night on Tuesday night. And I sit right there and I had a technical question, an IT question. And I thought, well, there's a whole bunch of young people out here in this, eating pizza that probably know the answer to my stupid person question. And I came out, and that conversation, they did not know the answer to my question. That actually made me feel a little bit better. But the conversation evolved to GBQ backpacks. We all have backpacks that have logos on them. And I was informed that once you make manager, which is when you have, 5 or 6 years of corporate experience, you don't use the backpack anymore because you're too old to use the backpack. And I was like, well, I use the backpack. And they're like, yeah. So I went home and dug out my leather bag that I used to use before we got the cool backpacks. It doesn't hold nearly as many things, but I certainly don't want to walk around being the person that people are like, oh, she's too old to use the backpack. So Kelly helped me out with this today because she told me that 50 is the definition of a mature worker. So I'm officially in that category as well, and that's very disappointing. But I'm excited to see what's going to happen here. And I guess there's a little bit of bias going both directions, in that little conversation I had, which is part of the challenge that we have as we think about engaging other kinds of workers, whether those be, populations of refugees, immigrants. We've talked about people coming out of high school. We've had a lot of discussions in this series about how to engage with different kinds of workers than those that look like us. And bias is a big piece of that, right? So my bias was that young people, of course, know more about technology than me, and their bias was that I'm too old for a backpack. So we're currently experiencing more employees continue to work after the traditional age of 65. Kelly's going to talk to you a lot about the demographic forces that are at work, I think. Many of them are seeking ways to contribute and remain vital members of an organization. A company culture that honors that experience will benefit older workers and encourage them to stay. Research demonstrates that companies can increase their retention of mature workers by offering flexible arrangements, providing training and development opportunities, and facilitating management and knowledge transfer. And honestly, isn't that what we all want in our jobs? So I'm excited to hear about what the distinctions are and what they're not. And I'm going to introduce Kelly to take it from here and start our program.
Well, good morning, everyone. As Darcy said, my name is Kelly Fuller, and my role at the Columbus Chamber of Commerce is Vice President of Talent and Workforce Development. And I'm super excited today to share in this conversation with all of you and this amazing panel. So I'll ask them to come join me if they will now, please. Thank you. So Darcy did mention, that we do have some changes and some dynamics in the workforce that is certainly impacting talent. I think everyone can agree that regardless of the industry that you're in, you're probably experiencing some challenge in both finding people and keeping people. So we have talked over the last few years about, are the businesses that are in our membership and in our community really reaching as many different talent pipelines as possible? And as Darcy mentioned, we've talked about refugee and immigrant communities, emerging talent, which we define as folks coming out of high school and college and adult, career programming. We haven't really scratched the surface yet of talking about our mature worker. And just some quick statistics that are kind of alarming. By the year of 2035, which isn't really that far away, statistics are indicating that we will have more people in the United States 65 and older than we will have under the age of 18. So when you think about those implications, both at the workforce, in school, in colleges, a lot of colleges and universities are already looking at what they're predicting to be an enrollment drop off, a real cliff that's going to happen because we're just not going to have as many 18-year-olds. There are a lot of factors that lead into this, lots that we could talk about, whether it is just changes. If you look across the world, Italy, Japan, Germany, Brazil, the US, we all have an aging population. So what are we doing to make sure that older workers are still considered workers and they're still in the workplace in meaningful ways? So we're going to talk more about that today. One other statistic I'll leave you with, in 2021, from the baby boomer generation, we had 1 million more people retire than were originally anticipating to retire. Again, a real dynamic, a real squeeze on the workforce. So again, happy to have this conversation today with the panel. I'm going to start down at the very end and work my way back. We'll start with Carol, and then if you could just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your interest in this space.
Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. And thanks to Kelly and Don and the Chamber for putting this together. It's a topic we've all wanted to have an opportunity to talk about. I'm Carol Ventresca. I know some of you in the audience and really excited to meet everyone else. I'm the former director of a nonprofit called Employment for Seniors. We were assisting 50 and over in Central Ohio in their job search. I left the agency just before COVID, which was amazing in and of itself. And since then, I'm the co-host of a podcast called Looking Forward Our Way, which is pinpointing issues for those 50 and over in our community and finding resources for folks. My background is I was a career advisor and academic advisor at Ohio State and director of continuing education there for adult students for 30 years of public service. So been doing job search support for a long time, and with literally students from 18 to 80. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Good morning. My name is Raina Sims. I am the Associate State Director of Outreach and Advocacy with AARP Ohio. I have been with AARP since October of 2021. I previously had a job that I'd been in for a while, and during COVID, as with all this, there was some degree of change, working from home, had some time to think about some things, and I wasn't happy. And I thought to myself, it's not a crime to be able to be happy while you are working. There's got to be an opportunity for me out there where I can actually enjoy what I'm doing and still make a great living. So I recall one day sitting there before my 50th birthday, and I had a moment to myself, so I checked my personal email. And over the past couple of days, I'm like, why do I keep getting these emails from AARP? I'm not 50. And I would just go, and I would just delete, like, what? So one day I was intrigued. And so I read an article, which led to another article, which led to another article. I'm like, I really enjoy this magazine. So as I scrolled to the bottom of the page, the button that was the largest said careers. And I went, huh. So I clicked on it. That was April of 2021. The next month, I had applied and gotten an interview. And over the series of months after that, I was employed at AARP. So I'm literally walking the talk that we're speaking about today. It was a very personal journey, one where I wasn't sure what was the outcome. So it's just wonderful to be able to share this morning with each of you and each of our panelists to talk about that very thing. So thank you for having me.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Phillips. I'm the employment specialist at New Directions Career Center. I work with our clients in helping them secure employment once they have gone through our programs and taken advantage of the various services that we offer. We've been in Columbus 43 years. We like to tell people we are the best kept secret, but we're trying to change that every day. We work with individuals, especially women who are in some sort of career transition. They are not happy with what they're doing and they want to make a change. And so we provide career counseling and workforce development in helping them identify who they are, what they want to do, and then finally we help them get there. We meet them where they are, and so we do provide we take a holistic approach with them. They come to us not sure of what's next from every walk of life possible. And by the time they leave us, hopefully they have not only added to their network because of the other amazing individuals that they go through the program with, but they have built confidence and come out with some great ideas of what they're going to do next. And so my greatest feel is when they call me or I hear from an employer that they hired them or they got the best job that they've ever had. So I've been with New Directions officially 7 years. My career started out as recruiting. So I've been in this employment world pretty much my entire life. I work for a national recruiting firm here, and we had an office here in Columbus. I took a huge leap of faith after 15 years to stay home with a then 4-year-old. And was the scariest thing that I ever did. I had never done anything but either go to school or work. And now I was going to be a full-time mom. And I said to, at that time, the person who had originally hired me and trained me, what will I ever do after, like, who will ever hire me? Because I know I'm going to have to go back to work, put this kid through college. And she said, you'll figure it out. She said, focus on what you're doing now with her. You can't screw this up. And so I took that advice and quickly realized I liked carpooling. I liked throwing fun parties in kindergarten and first grade, but I needed to put big girl clothes on and stay current. And so I knew about New Directions, and they were kind enough to let me volunteer for them for a really long time, and fell in love with the mission and the women that we serve. And my role opened up about 7 years ago. And so I tell everyone, I never imagined myself working in this capacity. I feel lucky to get to work with those women every day and our amazing team. And so the paycheck was the icing on the cake. My husband looks at it a little differently, but but it is an opportunity to do what you love to do every single day. So excited to be here with all of you, and hopefully we all learn a little bit more about how we can serve this amazing population.
Good morning. My name is TJ Johnson. I'm the president of Trabian Enterprises. We're an information technology solutions company headquartered in Dublin, Ohio. We specialize in information technology staffing and artificial intelligence solutions. Through our artificial intelligence solutions, we're in partnership utilizing IBM Watson as the integrated chatbot solution that we dispense to assist your community, your customer service, and your help desk platform to alleviate phone calls so that your community, I'm a community service person, so community service is coming out of my mouth all the time, so that your customer service and your help desk personnel can spend more time doing and performing other functions as it pertains to the business model. In regards to information technology staffing, we are a diversity, equity, and inclusion firm. As you know, and many of you probably may not know, IT lacks a lot of diversity. So Trabian Enterprises works to eliminate that diversity by encouraging women, minorities into information technology. And we do that through mentorship. We do that through encouraging people to get into STEM programs in universities. We do that by working with women during the interview process, because so often women don't feel like they're enough. And oftentimes, a man will apply for a job if they have 50% of the qualifications. A woman will apply for a job only if she has 100% of the qualifications. So there are a number of things that Trabian Enterprises does to awaken the market on things that they can do to make themselves more competitive in the job market. And we also work with our clients on updating their resume to eliminate age discrimination that's prevalent in your resume, and you don't even know it's there, and that's waving a red flag. We also give back. Trabian Enterprises cares. We do mentorship to encourage people into tech, but we also, after COVID, saw that there was a gap in technology when it came to mature workers and seniors. And we wanted to identify how we could bridge that digital divide. So last September, we hosted our first Seniors in Technology program. We provided seniors with free iPhones and free tablets, and then we provided education on how to utilize those devices. Oftentimes, people are intimidated by technology. They're intimidated because they're unaware of the benefits of technology, and it's evolving so quickly, you feel like you're being left behind. So during this program, we were educating seniors because we want mature workers to stay in the work environment, right? We don't want you to be intimidated by technology and how fast it's growing, correct? And we want mature workers not only to understand the importance of technology, but we want you to understand the important role that you play in technology and why it's so important that you remain in the workforce so technology can continue to evolve on all levels, multi-generational levels and age levels. So I love being in technology, and I am so happy to be here today. I'm looking forward to learning a lot of stuff, and I'm hoping that you learn a lot of stuff too.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh. Thank you.
Yes, Rena.
Forgive me. I'm so happy to be here this morning. I failed to say what AARP does. I told my state director, brevity is not my ministry. So I got a little concerned that I was talking excessively. But a lot of people think AARP is just insurance. We're not. You know, that is a part of what it is that we do. But we also advocate. We advocate on behalf of the 50 plus to ensure that there are adequate opportunities to work, that there is education and awareness about saving for how long you've worked. We advocate for issues such as Social Security, lowering prescription drug prices. So we're out there making sure that for the issues that impact our population the most, that we have a voice. And I say we because we are heavily at the shoulders, toe to toe with our volunteers. They are with us in this walk. I have volunteers that volunteer upwards of 30 hours a week just with AARP, and not just, you know, speaking here and there, but literally working. And we could not do this work without them. And so we are in the community also for the outreach portion, where we talk about issues and education and awareness, again, around work and save, around caregiving, you know, how to take care of yourself as you take care of others. We talk about home fit, because part of our mission is to ensure that we are able to live well and age as we'd like to in our homes, or if it's in a community of seniors, how to live our best life, if you will, with these resources. So we work to make sure that we educate and raise awareness around home fit, walkable communities, livable, age-friendly communities, to make sure that we are a voice for the community. But that it includes getting out and about, listening, talking, and engaging like we're doing this morning. So I wanted to make sure that I did that so I could earn my keep.
Thank you. So we're going to, oh, perfect. So we're going to dive right into it because Darcy teed this up earlier in her introduction about kind of the misconceptions that we have about different peer age groups in the workplace. Carol, I'm going to start with you. When you think about misconceptions about older workers, 50 and older, and when we talk about that, that can be someone 50, 60, 70. We have people in their 80s still in the workplace.
what's really scary also, as I was working with at Employment for Seniors and our client base was 50 and over, every time I went to a program, a job fair, did a presentation, I was inundated with people who were in their 40s. So this notion of career transitions happens often and happens younger than what people assume. Sort of my soapbox about age issues is that it seems in our world, the only ism we are allowed to say and not have any repercussion is ageism. And I saw the beauty of all of the wonderful, mature, experienced, seasoned job seekers for the 11 years I was at Employment for Seniors. We would assist anywhere from 750 to 1,000 people a year. So older workers looking for work is not new. This is something that has been going on and issues they've had to address. I brought a little bit of data with me. Kelly knows you don't give a PhD a microphone and an open schedule. But I have some statistics. The Scripps Gerontology program, which you mentioned earlier, had additional information on the population of Ohio. In 2010, 28 Ohio counties had a population of 60 plus, at least 20%. I'm sorry, of 60 plus population, it was under 20% in 28 Ohio counties. By 2050 in Ohio, which is an aging populace, only 2 counties will have a population under 20% at 60 plus. Our counties, our state will have a larger population. Franklin County will be at about 20%, and it goes up to 33% throughout the state. Then also, recently, the Age Friendly Innovation Center, which is part of Ohio State's College of Social Work, along with the Office on Aging and the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, put together the 2021 Central Ohio Regional Assessment on Aging. It's called the CORA report. Let me just give you a couple of things. They surveyed 1,375 people. 20% were working full-time, 9% part-time, 4% were self-employed. So about a third were working. Another 4% were seeking work, and several individuals were in training programs. Now, 68% of that population was not working, could not work, and was not interested in working, but 32% was interested in working. So again, my message is the misconception is older adults don't want to work. They don't have the skills to work. They're not willing to learn new things. This is specific information that's recent that's saying older adults do want to work. And part of that study, they asked how many worked for just income or how many worked because they wanted to continue their professional skills, build their community network, feel wanted. And there were 14%, I'm sorry, 20% found work rewarding, 14% wanted to continue to work in their professional areas. Only 18% of those working cited financial or insurance needs. So again, older adults do want to work. They have the skills to work. They have a lot of experience to bring to your table and are willing to be productive individuals in your organization.
Add to that, there was a study by the Max Planck Institute in 2016 where it mentioned one of the biggest misconceptions is that, our aging population slows down as we get older. That is absolutely the exact opposite. Productivity actually increases. You've got life experience behind you. You have the opportunity to think about what it is that you actually want to do. So you're making time in the way to do that. And so that misconception couldn't be farther from the truth. If you look at our volunteers across our entire enterprise, 70s, 80s, and they are working circles around a lot of us, even in this room. I tell you, when the sheer volume of advocacy and engagement that these volunteers do and that they have a passion for, and they bring a wealth of knowledge from their previous work
Mhm.
experience, when they share this, it is absolutely, it's engaging, it is motivational. And so they have really stepped up in terms of their time and involvement in the community. So that is an absolute misconception. And then with regard to another big misconception that I really can't abide, but just that we don't like to learn, as we get older. All lies. Because, we find that you'll have research that says, I guess you reach your peak, intelligence around 20 or, 25 or so, the quickness with which you can recall facts and so forth. However, you begin to reach your peak in terms of your emotional and your mental maturity around 45. How many of you have been in a room with a person that will term a younger person, and you're in a meeting, great discussion going on, and they say something way off the mark. You're thinking, did you just hear what they just said? And you're thinking, how in the world could they have said that? Because there might not be that emotional maturity. Maybe they don't understand how to read a room. So time and experience comes with that. Being able to understand when it's appropriate to engage in that level of conversation in the right place, literally reading the room. So just really, we want to make sure that we are engaging the community at all levels so that our volunteers are the face of the community and folks can see we're still active. 70s and 80s. And I mean 70s and 80s, and they're calling me, texting, I got to catch up. So we want to make sure that we always share that message and make sure that's clear.
I will echo all of that. I would just emphasize or add, misconceptions being they don't have the energy, the technology, they're set in their ways, they've worked in one industry or done one job. And again, that's misconceptions. And they're not motivated. They want to be retired. They want to stay home. Well, that is not true either, because if we look at older or mature adults, financially, they can't afford to stay home. We've all seen what our market has done over the last few years, and retiring at 55 or 60 or even 65 is just not realistic unless you want to give up the lifestyle that you're used to. Many mature people are still supporting their children and now oftentimes grandchildren. And COVID has shown us that a lot of these children and extended families quit their jobs, moved home, that type of thing. And so they are still supporting their families at the same level that they did when their children or grandchildren were very young, and they can't afford to just sit home and wait. And I heard from another client not long ago who could retire. She's like, I don't have anybody to play with. She worked for 35 years in her career and had a good retirement, but none of her friends could retire. She's like, what am I going to do? I have no one to hang out with. And so she said, I also don't want to just sit home and watch game shows and let my mind go to mush. And so I think those are all very valid reasons why people want to stay. And for employers, they get maturity, they get good energy, they get new ideas or ways that they had to figure things out along the way before we had all this technology that might be helpful and beneficial to them.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I would like to applaud everything everyone said and add. And tech, they say older people just are not tech savvy, and the statistics beg to differ, right? So statistically, 18-year-olds to 49-year-olds are using technology 99% of the time, right? If you're 50 to 64, you're using technology 96% of the time. If you're over 65, you're using technology 75% of the time. Those numbers are pretty high, and they were on the increase after COVID. They predict in 2024 that everyone will be in the 96 to 99 percentile because we have a reliance on technology, and technology is moving rapidly. It's taking over. It's in our cars. It's on our hip. It's in our purses. It's on our counter at home. It's in our television. Technology is in this room. It's everywhere. So as long as technology is everywhere we go, we can't help but embrace it because it's going to be a part of our life. It's demanding to be a part of our lives. It's going to integrate itself into our lives, right? Some of this technology, we're not going to be able to control. It's going to come in and tell us it wants to be a part of our life, and we'll have to structure what that means for them. So with these numbers on the increase, I ask people, learn technology, become comfortable with technology. It's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's only going to increase. So I'm looking forward to those numbers increasing next year.
Thank you. I want to pivot for a second to a conversation that I was in about 3 weeks ago. I had an opportunity to sit on a panel with the Entrepreneurship Institute, and we were talking about recruiting blue collar workers and some of the challenges in that space. And sitting to my right was a gentleman who was third generation owner of a steel company in a small town in southwestern Ohio. And he talked about the challenges of finding people, running a small operation and finding people that would come in and actually do the work to make the product and get it out the door to pay the bills. And he's running a small shop. So in any department, it's almost impossible to have more than one person off at a time. So he's really struggling with trying to figure out, how do we manage this? So he looked around his community and he realized, oh my goodness, there are a lot of guys, and mostly guys, but some women that are now retired from this company who may have worked for my dad or maybe me when I got started. And he turned to that group of people and said, gosh, you know, would you like to come back? Some wanted to come back full time, but a smaller number said, you know what, I could do this job basically in my sleep. When you want to let two people off at the same time in an area, I can come in and fill in a shift, right? So that has become one of his ways to staff so that he can keep the younger workers happy by giving them the time off and keeping this older group of workers, re-engaging them in the workforce. Are you seeing other things like that? Those of you who deal with businesses, are you seeing other things like that that businesses are doing or asking about doing in order to solve some of these talent crises?
There was a study done, and my apologies, I don't have the citation with me, and it was for a men's tie factory. It was a small group. I think they were East Coast. Handmade ties, very exclusive. A small group of older women made these by hand. And the owners soon realized, we're going to start losing these people. They were afraid of retention issues, them going someplace making more money. And so the owner sat down with the women, and the one thing they needed was flexibility in their schedule. So they literally gave every worker a key to the shop. And they were allowed to put their hours in. They were still working 40 hours a week, but they could put them in at 6 in the morning, 9 at night, on the weekends, whenever they wanted to. They went in, they had a key, production went up. So my message is that when an older adult is coming to you as a potential applicant, listening to their concerns should not preclude them from being a viable candidate just because of age or your notion that they can't learn something new. One thing we found when I was at Employment for Seniors is that older adults will learn differently. You know, when employers would say to me, oh, older adults don't know technology, I would look at them and say, baby boomers invented the internet. This isn't new to us. But we learn it differently because we didn't have it from the age of 2 on in our hands. So there could be ways to help people learn skills in a different manner than what other applicants.
I think one of the important things is a transfer of knowledge, institutional knowledge, generational knowledge. So mentoring is a key component in having a multi-generational workforce. So in terms of making sure that there is not a loss of that experience, of that relationship building, and of the critical, just the critical strategies that built a given organization. There has to be an opportunity for our senior members to work with our newer members. And so there are a number of organizations that have mentoring programs that are specifically for that, where, new staff members have a senior member as a mentor. I've even seen in some of the civic organizations to which I belong, there's the same model, for the newer members there, you have a mentor to kind of show you the ropes. So the same thing happens. And I think that also helps retain some of our senior workforce that cannot retire because there's times being what they are. It keeps them engaged. It keeps them encouraged because there's a value in that information in that time. There's value in that experience that they've gained, and they can then transfer that knowledge and that experience to a new generation. So it's really like their legacy even. So it's building a legacy.
Yeah, I would just add to that, just creating that inclusive culture in your offices and in your companies where everybody's input and experience and knowledge is valued. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that people feel that they can still bring value or add value, and highlighting that, the flexibility being key. Most of us had to work remotely 3 years ago, and we were a prime example. We were the people in-person business. And so we kind of sat there like, how are we going to do this? And we thought, well, we can't not do it. And so we figured out how to deliver our services virtually like everybody else did. And we found that our numbers went up almost exponentially, in the number of people that we were serving and just our staff productivity. Personally, part of it was I wanted to keep my job. And so I was willing to do whatever I had to do and work as much as I had to do for that stability. But I think a lot of people felt that way. And the fact that I could log on my computer at 6 a.m. when this puppy I agreed to get was ready to go, and do my thing. And if I had to take a break or do whatever at 10 o'clock in the morning, that was okay, because I surely wasn't logging off at 5 o'clock. My computer was on my dining room table, and I was bad enough that I didn't shut it off and could hear those alerts going off. And so you had to build some boundaries around that time, but I feel like COVID brought more productivity to the workforce when we least expected that would happen. And I think that people are used to that. And I think employers respected that increased productivity and the job getting done. And if they can offer that flexibility, that's going to build loyalty and help them retain really good talent there. You have to log off for a few minutes to go get your kid at the bus stop or pick up from carpool, and the world isn't going to fall apart because you're going to keep working until you get your job done. So.
And the other thing, corporations realize and recognize now that seniors are a valuable part of their work environment. In technology, we refer to them as subject matter experts, SMEs. These are people who have extensive knowledge and expertise, and they use SMEs to train their teams and their staffs. So corporations are understanding that the job market and the environment is changing. Corporations are taking a pledge of having an age-inclusive workforce. The Marriott, take for instance, if you've been there at the Marriott for 25 years, you get free hotel stays. After you reach a certain age, if you're thinking about living in a senior assisted living or a senior facility, Marriott has a list of facilities that you can patronize at a discount. They believe in a flexible work environment, and that's the Marriott. Now let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft says, hey, we'll lead the way in tech. We're not only going to give you a 2-week vacation, we're going to give you a 4-week vacation, right? We're going to give you caregiver leave. There are so many things that they're doing. We're going to give you a 4-week workday. We're going to find out what it is you need in your life to fit your schedule. And we're going to allow that flexibility within our business model. So corporations are looking, they are listening. I know when women left the work environment due to COVID, companies like Dow Jones said, okay, we're not just going to say women come back. we're going to take it one step further. We're going to build a childcare facility at Dow Jones. So now, ladies, come back to work because your kids can come to work with you. So corporations out, some, not all of them, but when you have corporations like Marriott and Microsoft and Dow Jones taking a lead on an age inclusive work environment, then other corporations start to listen. And then it helps small businesses, because when the corporations take the lead, it helps the wave of new ideas and new concepts to flourish throughout the entire model.
Thank you for that. I was going to bring it back to our small businesses. As most of you know, our Chamber of Commerce is made up of a majority of small businesses, and we define that as businesses with 50 or fewer employees. So a lot of times, they're looking to the chamber and to partners like those organizations that you represent to help. Jamie, I want to go back to something that you surfaced because you work with businesses that are trying to find people, and you talked about the clients that you serve. Think about a small business maybe that you've worked with, or a collection of small businesses. Are their struggles different than a larger company? And what are they doing, especially in the space of engaging a more mature workforce?
So sure, their struggles, they don't have the money that oftentimes large corporations have, right? They don't have the extra resources or support in place. And so oftentimes they are stretched a little thinner, especially the last few years with staffing. And so I think that's harder. The benefit is they don't have a board to report to or an executive committee, right? They can make decisions quicker and easier because they only have a certain amount of people that they have to run things by. And many times those leaders or executives are in the trenches just like everybody else on a daily basis. And so they see the struggles or the pain that these people are experiencing. So I feel like they're a little more tied to the pulse of what's happening. And they do have the wherewithal, if you will, to be a little more flexible, because there's only so many people up the line who need to say yes or make the decision, right? And everybody is feeling the same amount of pain. With the bigger corporations, while they do have other services and benefits that they can offer, sometimes by the time they get the message of where staffing is struggling or people are struggling, it's too late. So, I mean, there are pros and cons to both, certainly, but with those smaller businesses, they don't have maybe the brand name or the notoriety, right, of a larger corporation. So they have to rely on word of mouth and positive reviews and being members of the Columbus Chamber, who can help provide them those additional resources. Yeah.
I think smaller organizations are also oftentimes more closely embedded in the community.
Mhm.
So they're more apt to quickly be able to see some of what's going on around them, and then how it impacts their staff members. So I think flexibility is a cross-cutting issue across a lot of different areas with regards to employing seniors. But being able to see what impacts their staff members quicker from a smaller organization, they're able to understand better. Work is not life. Work is what we do to pay the bills. Now, there's nothing wrong. We enjoy it, and we can make an impact in our communities by going to work. And that's what I love about working with AARP. But AARP, among all of our other organizations, recognizes that we have lives outside of our offices, and that there's no way that our life will somehow impact us in the office. So it's best to figure out in advance of that how to keep your staff members happy. Flexibility, I think, is just an absolute key. You're going to have to go take our dogs to the vet. We're going to have a surprise school day off. Our grandparents are raising their grandchildren. Some of them, because their children were first responders, so they're back in childcare. Any number of reasons, but I think smaller organizations are just quicker to be able to turn around for all the reasons that you said.
Yeah.
And flexibility is a cross-cutting issue around a number of issues. I think no matter the size, flexibility is going to be key.
I want to sort of give a shout out to the value of the small businesses in terms of their recruiting and hiring practices for older adults. And this was, my experience before the pandemic. Smaller organizations were more well equipped to really give older adults a fair shot at a job opportunity, over and above, because the electronic application system wasn't as critical. Large organizations have, the applicant tracking systems so often just pop people out very easily, where with a small corporation, particularly if you can set up opportunities to actually meet groups of applicants, you have a better chance of finding where their skills lie, what skills you need, who's got those skills. And with some of the great organizations we have in Central Ohio who are supporting those applicants, making them good job candidates, there's a better conversation. So I think that small businesses have the first step in terms of hiring and recruiting. And when we're talking about flexibility, sometimes to me, I'm wondering if I believe we need to show flexibility, but I'm afraid the employers are so inundated with the need for staff. When you say flexibility, my fear is you're all going to look at me and say, we don't have time. We need this work done. So flexibility can be really looked at in two ways. It could be where the person's position is flexible in that maybe they want to be a snowbird for a month in the winter and you allow them to step away, or that they are working from home because transportation is an issue. And in Central Ohio, transportation is a huge issue, particularly for older adults. But then the other phase of flexible scheduling could be that notion of you have some of your staff dropping kids off at daycare and other staff dropping their parents off at adult care during the day. So there's a difference in that. I found a Department of Labor statistic that I thought may be of interest in that flexibility issue. DOL found an increase in part-time workers driven by those who wished to work part-time, not who were forced to work part-time because their hours were cut or that was the only job they could find. 22.1 million people worked part-time in January of 2023. That is 6 times more than the 4.1 million who were working part-time but preferred full-time. And that number, that gap, is twice what it was before COVID. So flexibility could be job sharing, taking a position and cutting it in two, getting 2 people to do a job. So there are ways that you can be flexible, but not lose the what has to be done, that you can get those jobs done.
So as a small business owner, I applaud everything that they're saying. I actually want to get up and dance, but yeah, you're right. Small business owners, because I enjoy being a small business owner, and the U.S. economy needs small business owners. We make up 65% of the new jobs, right? So we're valuable. And the government showed us how valuable we were as small businesses during COVID with the PPP, which was the Paycheck Protection Program, where they knew how critical it was to keep small business vibrant and thriving, because if small business had collapsed, the economy would have collapsed on top of it. So yes, we struggle as small business owners to compete with corporations. They have these astronomical marketing budgets. They've got brand awareness. They have people, right? And that's hard to compete with. But the wonderful thing is we have the opportunity and the honor to hire mature workers. And we need you, right? Because we're wearing 15 hats. And yes, we would love to hire and mentor kids coming out of college. We would love to have a staff full of $12 an hour interns. We would love that because we need that. We could afford that. But what we really need is someone who can think like us, right? Someone who's really ahead of us, because small business owners, the biggest problem we have is we don't know what we don't know, right? So when we bring mature workers into our business, They know what we don't know, right? Because of their knowledge and their expertise and their wealth of experience, they bring critical thinking to our business model. So mature workers are instrumental in a small business, and we know how instrumental. So we provide the flexibility. If they need Fridays off because of doctor's appointments and for whatever, they want to just, leave Friday and come back Sunday because they can, right? We can provide that flexibility. Small businesses, I know before I owned my own business, I loved to work for small companies because I don't like bureaucratic red tape. I don't. When I have a decision that needs to be made, I want the president to address it now. I don't want it to go to my manager, the supervisor, and then sit on the director's desk. And then that's bureaucratic red tape, right? And so it's important to know that when you're working with the company, you know everybody in the company. The president or the VP or the manager's office is right down the hallway, right? You can negotiate for more money when you're in a small business, right? You can have the conversation to increase your salary on merit, on your own merit. You can get promoted quicker in a small business. And oftentimes, if a small business is growing, they'll create a position for you. And you'll have the best job ever because it was created specifically for you. So there are so many advantages to being and working with a small business. We're agile, right? We're innovative, and we need your talent. We need you because we're limited. Technology is expensive. And mature workers were there before technology, and their techniques, their capabilities and abilities slide in the gap where technology doesn't exist. Their skills and abilities exist because it was there, like you said, before technology.
Let the computer system go down and you'll see all the mature workers getting out a pad of paper and a pencil and getting the work done.
Absolutely. So
Yes.
so small businesses, just so you know, small businesses embrace mature workers. So, make sure you get my card. So if you're looking, if you have some mature workers, I need them. I need their expertise, their knowledge, and their experience.
Thank you for that, TJ. I want to, from a nuts and bolts perspective, I want to go back to Carol. You mentioned that locally we have some providers and resources. And I'm wondering from the whole panel, just if you think about beyond your own organizations and what you're currently doing, can you think of other organizations or agencies in the Columbus market that can help support? So I'll give a quick analogy. When I'm working with our refugee and immigrant community, I often partner with Jewish Family Services and my friends from that organization, because when they're working with the refugee and immigrant job applicant, they're kind of helping resolve some of those barrier issues like transportation. When we think about that from the lens of a more mature workforce, are there agencies and organizations beyond your own here in this area that can kind of help with some of those so that businesses can plug into that and feel like they're providing the best resources for their mature workforce?
Well, one of my gigs is as a researcher for the Workforce Innovation Center, and we've been doing several projects over the past couple of years, one of which we did a survey of agencies in Central Ohio. And that was just Franklin and the contiguous counties, not even beyond that. We found about 40 nonprofit agencies that provide service to job seekers. Now, this was any age. We weren't looking at just mature workers, but there are a lot of services out there. And that's going to be my message to everybody all day today. There are governmental offices that do a phenomenal job of working with you to find new clients and new employees. But the nonprofit agencies are small businesses. They are flexible. They love working with employers. They do the face-to-face hand-holding that their job seeker may need, particularly with mature job seekers, because they haven't had to look for a job for 30 years. They don't know what's required on how to do an online application. They don't know the changes on resumes that we've seen over the past few years. So the nonprofit agencies are incredible. And I'd be happy to share with Kelly that list. I will always advocate for the nonprofit agencies, and Jamie can talk a lot more about that. She's in the midst.
Yeah, I would echo Carol. I mean, there's a lot of other organizations around town that do help. I think any organization that can help their clients feel confident and feel worthy and not be ashamed that they haven't done an online application or they don't understand this applicant tracking thing, that you do have to customize your resume and your cover letter and a job application for every job that you apply for, because again, these employers, even small to medium sized companies, are utilizing these applicant tracking systems, but there are ways around it, or there are ways to kind of play the game, if you will, to increase your chances of that resume moving to the top of the pile. And again, when I explain it to my client, like, why don't we change this wording, or why don't we add this? And the light bulb goes on, and then they call me and they're like, I got an interview, or I got an email that wasn't just a ding interview, email. And so it's helping a lot of hand holding, and that's okay. That's what we do. But there are other organizations besides our group out there, Jewish Family Services, Chris, there's
Goodwill.
Yep.
Goodwill Columbus, the
Goodwill.
Urban League. There are many, many local organizations that can assist you. But, and let me just add to what Jamie was saying, particularly with older adults and someone who has been in the same job or the same job area for most of their life, and they're, for whatever reason, looking for a transition and change into something new. They are going to be unfamiliar with the terms you're using in your job descriptions. They are not going to do a really good job of understanding the skills they have and how it transfers into a new position. They are, again, not going to understand the process of finding work. Oftentimes we would have somebody come in and say, well, can't I just fill out an application? And we're like, well, yeah, you maybe, but it's not going to do you any good. So let's work on that. That's the value that the nonprofits are going to bring, because they're working with their clients one-to-one to make them successful. They're not just giving them access to a database of jobs.
I think the area agencies on aging are also tremendous asset to our communities, because they partner with nonprofit organizations, but they're just so resourceful in knowing where that community-based nonprofit support is. And so that partnership with the larger entities and all of the resources that those area agencies on aging bring in partnership with the community organizations, because of that ability to understand more from a more personal standpoint. So the area agencies on aging, and then organizations with our workforce becoming ever more diverse, the Hispanic Latina Mentoring Academy, and there are the Asian American, what is the name of the organization? In Immigrant Services. I always get the acronym wrong, but specifically we'll work with seniors from those respective cultures. And there are a number of others, but those culturally based and culturally appropriate, culturally knowledgeable organizations can also help one feel more comfortable. If you're new to the area and have some of those maybe distinct language issues also, some of our English speaking language doesn't always translate to a specific cultural meaning, to someone else. So it's important to embrace all of that also, with our workforce being ever more diverse.
And I will say too, as for employers, because I worked in the recruiting field for so long, I probably called on some of you way back when, and nobody wants to spend that extra money if they don't have to, right? Because it's not cheap to do that. I am the employment specialist. I work to build relationships with employers here in Central Ohio. I'm not the only one who does that in a nonprofit agency. There are other people who do what I do, and we don't charge our employers anything. So if you're looking for help recruiting people, pooling from our talent pools, I would encourage you to check out, obviously I'm going to toot our horn, us, but other, the other great organizations here in Central Ohio that are working with professional, skilled, educated, tenured, mature individuals who are chomping at the bit to continue to do what they do.
Awesome. And you guys probably covered the entire list. Of course, my favorite is Goodwill, and my ultimate favorite is AARP. You guys have a phenomenal, but you do. I'm going to toot your horn. I'm a member of AARP.
And you're all welcome.
So I'm just going to share this with you. So I typically lie about my age because no one can ever guess it. So I had an AARP bag because, you know, they give great gifts when you renew. They send you these gifts. So I had lied about my age, and the gentleman that I was with, he said, "Does that bag say AARP?" I was like, "Oh, see, I can't." So that was hilarious. Not that it mattered to him, but it gave me away. But also there are state agencies like the Job and Family Services. The governor's office has the Tech Cred program, which is a grant to businesses to upskill their workers. You get reimbursed for the amount of money that you invest in your workers. So these are incredible agencies. And it's important to note that not only are the nonprofits looking to invest in mature workers, your government here in the state of Ohio is looking to invest in mature workers as well.
So really quickly, before we move into the last few minutes before we take questions. So the resources that have been shared with you, most all of you know that as a follow-up to Experience Series, we do a thought leadership piece that'll go out, and we'll make sure that we include links to all of these different agencies in addition to others that we weren't able to mention today that are going to help you connect to those providers and resources in the space. So just take maybe a minute before we move to questions, but I'm going to start with you, TJ, and then we'll go down the line. If you are talking to a business owner and they're hesitant about moving into the space of hiring mature workers, what is one thing that you would say to them to help maybe calm their concerns or help encourage them to move forward?
I would tell them that I would not be in business today. I've been a small business owner now for 8 years. And the reason that I am still in business is because we hire mature workers. We wear, as I stated earlier, we wear a ton of hats as owners, as business owners, and having mature workers there to see things before we see them, to provide us with wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and then to dig in the trenches with us, right? Mature workers stay there by your side because they understand the investment. They've been there, they've done that. Workers want to see that what they invest in a business, they can see the seed, they can see the fruits from their labor. You don't necessarily see that when you work for a corporation. You don't see your value. But in a small business, you see your value, and we appreciate it, and the business grows.
That, and again, the energy, the dedication, the commitment, the loyalty that this generation has, nothing against other generations. Every generation has benefits to bring to the workforce, and we need them all working together. But I think it's different, and it can offer employers, I think, a sense of stability and the knowledge that they're going to continue on for hopefully a very long time.
That is a great segue into what I was going to say, is that our mature workers aren't necessarily wanting to coast into retirement. A mature worker has had the opportunity to have some life experience, some professional experience. So they know what they want. They bring some value with that. And so they have strategically sought out employment opportunities. So if a mature worker comes to your door, they've done their research. That means they want to be there specifically with you. So making it understood that that research has gone into place. They're bringing that institutional knowledge, the loyalty that's been shared. They want to be able to invest that time and have it given back to them. So just from that standpoint, if they're at your door, they want to be there because they've done the research.
That. And let me add an idea that we have fostered in the organizations that I've worked with dealing with older adults, and that is not just employment organizations, but other groups, age friendly. I'm now on the advisory council for the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. There is a belief that if something is good for an older adult, it is also good for a younger person too. So in looking at the ways you can make your organization welcoming for an older adult is also going to be ways you can make it welcoming for a younger adult. You've probably got a great website with a lot of young people pictured. Maybe add one older person so that someone who looks at your website will see themselves as being accepted. When you're looking at training programs for younger folks who want to move up the ladder, don't forget older folks who are looking at not just maintaining what they're doing, but learning some new skills along the way. And again, because they are loyal to you and they want to make your organization more valuable, they can do that by increasing their skills. Training is something we didn't get a chance to talk about today, but it's huge. The other thing too is that there are things that employers are doing which are incredible opportunities for young people. Some are looking at things like helping a young student pay off their student loan. Those are large dollars. Those are huge dollars. An older adult likely doesn't need that, but they could maybe use some assistance in paying for parking if they are coming in, particularly into the downtown area and have to pay for parking to get here, or for some kind of transportation cost. There are ways that are easy and not as expensive as you may think to assist those individuals, but over and above everything else, make it a welcoming organization for everybody, regardless of age, gender, race, culture.
Well, thank you. Before we move into closing remarks, we have time for a few questions. What questions do you have of the panel?
Hi there. My name is Eleanor. I work with Paylocity, and we talk a lot about succession planning with the mature workforce and ways to sort of incorporate that into the employee life cycle as mature workers start to, they have all this knowledge of the organization, whether they've been there a long time or not, and just that maturity piece. What do you see as some examples in organizations you've worked with or at of how they're sort of implementing that and making sure that the knowledge that you've gained and that maturity can pass along to the younger generations?
Some of the ways that I've seen that where I am now and previously for the state government and nonprofit has really been mentoring. I mean, it literally is the simplest aspect when there is a new staff member, and sometimes no matter the age, that person may or may not have that institutional knowledge. So just pairing that younger person or the new person with someone who, a senior staff member that does have that knowledge. And not just for the onboarding process, but allowing them to just develop a relationship, to actually encourage, just go out for coffee, have lunch, share some social time to get to know one another so that if and when there is an opportunity to learn in both directions, they both feel comfortable doing so. So just encouraging that personal touch with the mentoring component of sharing that knowledge and making time. Sometimes we're so busy being busy, there's not time to do the work. So literally in those particular instances, to make sure to put time actually on your calendars to do those things. So that it's not just, yes, that's my mentor. Have you made time to meet with them? Have you had some time to just talk about, hey, what's going on in general? So I think that.
That's a great question. I wish I'd thought of that question when I was doing all my research. I can give you a lot of really bad examples of what not to do. But one example, and this was on an international level, and I'll get some more information to Kelly because I'm going to kind of paraphrase this. There were corporations that were encouraged by an international organization to look at their older workforce and providing them some opportunities to change their job so that they could get out of sort of that responsibility management area, hone in on what the skills were, how they could add those skills to other parts of the organization, possibly in mentoring, possibly doing special projects that you may have that need to be done that have been sitting on your desk forever, getting them out of that where they have been. But then many of these organizations then actually let their workers, before they actually retired, to create a little business of their own within the corporation, so that when they walked away, they had something to take with them. So it could be where somebody could do a really good job of training for you, get them in there, let them learn how to do the training, make sure they have all the skills they need. Then when they walk away, they could become a training consultant, and you could bring them back in to do some work for them and get those projects sitting on your desk finished.
Malka Bendor with Jewish Family
It's
Services.
going to give us a
Guys are
hard question.
amazing. Hello. Oh. Here, I'm giving you a compliment. I just have on my wish list, I wish that companies would see return on investment in a different way. And I think for a lot of big companies, unlike the small ones, or maybe small, medium, large companies, should all be able to look at return on investment, because dollars wise, if they bring in people with experience from the mature workforce, they more than likely will make the money back on their investment, because people stick around. And like you said, Jamie, and everybody else, loyalty counts. So that's like on my wish list. And I wish they could add that into their decisions when, as they're hiring people. Another thing I wish is that that it would be acceptable that career transition is okay. And I think that a lot of people that are coming from the mature, experienced workforce, they want to change. That's okay. It's okay. They want to bring their experience and everything they've learned, but they want to transition. So accept that it's okay. They can influence or impact your company in another way. So don't look at as, don't poo-poo that. That's sort of my goal, my wish list here. And I think that another thing that, when we think about as an organization, is also that companies hopefully can be okay with people asking for less money. Because a lot of times people who are looking for jobs and they've worked a certain amount of years, they're like, cool, I'll take a pay cut. Don't judge me on it. You can still hire me. It's okay. And that kind of, so I think that that's important for companies to understand and not judge people or HR saying, oh, they want less money. What's behind that? It's okay. It's cool. They just want to, they're okay with doing that. So that I just wanted to share that it's been so wonderful to learn from everybody on this panel. And that I think people who are out there working with job seekers, we all have like a mini wish list for companies, and hopefully they'll hear us. Certainly we try. So thank you.
Malka, I've got some data for you on that notion. YouGov America, YouGov.com, surveyed 33,000 US adults, and they found that those responders were all 55 and over, were more likely to keep a low-paying job that they loved compared to a higher-paying job that they disliked. 59% of the older responders, compared to only 40% of those 25 and under, who were willing to stay at a job they loved for less pay. So income may not be the issue. And let me also add, when you're looking at your own workforce that you have, think in terms of retention, and not just 50, 60, but think in terms of retention at the 40-year-old. What do you need to do to keep that person? Keep that flexibility idea, keep those innovative bonuses that you can provide over the decades, because it's going to be a lot more cost efficient if you're not constantly recruiting. We all know that. So if you have 50-year-olds who want to remain with you, they have another 15 years worth of time before they hit Medicare. And that's the critical issue, is getting an individual to the point of Medicare so they don't have to worry about insurance costs. And if you can keep somebody for 15 years as opposed to constantly recruiting younger folks who may leave in 2 or 3 years, that's going to be a lot less cost for you individually.
I just wanted to add one thing too, kind of along those, not being afraid that when you see an applicant who has maybe more experience than what you really need, there's a reason they applied for that job. They've been there, they've done that. They don't want to work the 80-hour weeks. They don't want that amount of responsibility. They do want to share their value and their knowledge, but they don't have to be the boss or the expert anymore. They want a good job and a great environment to go to. And so don't shy away from maybe what looks like, wow, this is a really heavy hitter, or they have all this great experience, or they probably are asking for this much money where they don't want it. They don't need it. In many cases, they're in it for the fulfillment and the satisfaction and what the value that they can still deliver. And so don't put too much weight on some of those resumes. There's a reason they applied for that. So,
As the young people say, facts. 'Cause that is
Yeah.
exactly what I was talking about when we opened. That happiness factor was worth more than the pay to me. I feel more like myself. I feel fulfilled. This was so fun today, and so I just have had new opportunities, new experiences. And so that is, I'm all in the amen corner on that. That is 100% factual. Absolutely.
Thank you all so much for the conversation today. I'm going to invite Charlotte up to talk, and then I'll be back on the back side of that after Charlotte's done for a couple of reminders.
Thanks so much. Thank you, ladies. I can't imagine why they asked me to come and close the program. And TJ, I gotta tell you, I was in a sales meeting with all of my peers last month, and one of the young men looked over at me and said, "What do you do with all that paper?" Okay, you learn more when you write it down. So, see, it takes a minute, but yeah. So, I work with the dispatch group. The marketing arm of that group is Local IQ, and it all wraps up somehow, somewhere in a fund with USA Today and Gannett. And I appreciate you having us here, giving us a chance to wrap up the program. I have the opportunity to work to support a lot of amazing journalists in Columbus and around the country. And newspapers are still they are still the backstop of journalism in this country. Not that there are not fine people in broadcast, but when you are watching, especially breaking news, what you are going to hear is, well, according to the Columbus Dispatch, well, reporters for the Dayton Daily News. So, so I love what I do. I've been doing it a very long time. Through a lot of changes, we see people consuming news differently, and the most loyal population of newspaper readers are older, working, highly affluent, highly educated folks. At least in Central Ohio, that's how it plays out. They still want a newspaper in their hands. Our weekly reach in Central Ohio is 40% through digital and print. So we know we are still talking to people who still want to know what the journalists are talking about. So thanks so much for bringing these issues to light. Thanks for your good humor about it. I can get very intense when somebody says the word old. And thanks for letting us be a part of the conversation.
All right, three key things I want to point out. One is continue to watch columbus.org for upcoming chamber events. We're actually launching a new workforce series in July called Work With Us, where those in companies that may not have an HR background but are tasked with HR functions can come and learn with a cohort over a 6-month period about all things hiring, upskilling, and retention. The second thing, super important, if you parked in the Marconi garage, don't forget to stop out front and get your parking validated. And the third thing, would you look outside? We like outlasted the rain. So it's actually a pretty nice day. Thank you everybody for your time this morning. We hope to see you at a chamber event soon.